I know that many of you have expressed some frustration in terms of the rate of progress on improvements to the back-end tools. And we certainly recognize that there are challenges in terms of developing, running, and maintaining a platform for something as complicated as an open access publishing system. I mean, these sorts of technical projects are challenging to manage, and also retaining the right technical staff in the UK, competing against banks, is not straightforward. It's also not straightforward working with external developers as we do in different time zones. So these are very challenging problems, but we think we're doing very well in terms of continuing to improve the way we handle them. And we've made some really important hires and in the last few months. I wanted to mention a couple of them. As Deborah mentioned, we have a new Chief Technical Officer, a role we haven't had before, but we're having at the executive team level a proper CTO with a real depth of experience in managing really complicated technical projects and getting the right teams involved and the right combination of external development resource and in-house key architectural staff. So yeah, Mike comes to us from doctors.net, which is a sort of very kind of related area, and we're very excited about that. And working in combination with Mike in terms of actually developing the plans and the ideas and for how we should move forward and exactly what we should be doing to best deliver publishing technology which really helps our authors and editors. We have somebody with a lot of publishing experience in the STM world, Duncan Fraser, who's joining us as Head of Publishing Technology. And we think that in combination, those are two really important hires which will take us forward as we move on to some of the other projects we have coming up. And I'm going to tell you more about the major of those projects, which we refer to as Workflow 2, just shortly. So it was mentioned earlier when talking about these new features that performance is really important, and I would absolutely back that up. And one of the challenges we always face is as we continue to grow, as the usage grows, as the volume of what we do grows, we have to keep improving things, keep making things, make sure things are scalable. We have a dedicated team devoted to that, our IT ops team, and we do a lot of automated monitoring to make sure we're keeping the trends right. We're making sure that nothing is slowing down, and we're increasing the speed of those things. So just for example, on each of our different journal platforms, every hour there's a robot which does the entire submission process, times it and makes sure that every single step of it works successfully. And so we have full data going back for years showing us just how reliable or just how fast or just how slow the user experience for an author going through manuscript submission is. And one good side of that is if anything was to ever break with manuscript submission, any sort of aspect of it, we know very quickly that the robot would shout at us. One specific example of the sorts of improvements we've been able to make, we did hear complaints from users. We noticed it was specifically from Asia and from the sort of west coast of the US, or anywhere basically geographically distant, were saying that PDFs were much slower to download from BioMed Central's websites than from some other websites, and they were actually choosing to download them from PubMed Central instead. So we had a lot of digging to be done to find out what was going on, and there were all sorts of suggestions as to whether we had to invest in really expensive kind of content distribution systems or if there was a fundamental problem. We ended up digging down to an underlying configuration which made a difference, and happy to say that sort of tripled the speed of downloads and the experience researchers around the world. And I think it is really important that we have these metrics, we keep track of the trend, and we just keep pushing to make things faster and more reliable. So I promised to talk about Workflow 2. This is a way of referring to the back-end tools, the tools used by editors to manage journals and manage the manuscript flow within those journals. And we absolutely recognize that as they've built up over time, they're quite complicated to learn how to use, they're somewhat slow, they're somewhat clumsy, they don't let you efficiently do some of the jobs you want to be able to do. So we want to take a major step back and do a good plan for how we would build a better system, more flexible system to deliver that. So there's been a special project team focusing on this, doing a lot of work on it for the last 6 months in terms of design and planning. In terms of the goals, it's about making the system more intuitive. So it's not a question of taking a long time to learn how to use it. New editors, external section editors, members of the academic community, we want them to be able to quickly get up to speed in using it. We want you to be able to do things in a few clicks. Clearly, if you want to be able to do the same thing for 3 manuscripts, you shouldn't have to click 17 times to do it. We want to make sure that all the performance and the scalability really works for journals which grow. It doesn't just work for a journal with 100 articles, it works for a journal with 1,000 articles or 2,000 articles. We want to really make sure that special cases can be handled well. Certain articles which need particular attention, certain scenarios where an article needs to be held up. This is really giving you more flexible tools for that kind of thing. and also to take all of the suggestions we've had from editors about the existing tools and their experience and their comparisons with, say, other alternative systems, and try and learn from that. Learn not just from their suggestions in terms of critiques of our tools, but also, say, frustrations with other tools, and try and come up with a system that will really offer a competitive advantage to us in terms of offering the best system for editors. So we've worked on this both with internal resources, internal skills, and also with an external design agency with a particular specialism in this kind of complex information architecture, and also with previous experience of working in the sort of STM area. I've also worked with Nature before. And we've been, on an ongoing basis, seeking to get as much input as we can from editors, both internally and externally. And so some of you, I think, will maybe already have heard from us on this, but we are going to try and involve more and more editors in providing input, and this is why I'm showing you this now as well. So we're very much keen to hear more ideas. And yeah, these are the sort of groups who've been involved in developing it. So this is a quick summary of the sorts of new functionality which are in the system, but I think it's easiest if I kind of run on to some mock-ups, which will give you an idea of how things work. It's not going to be necessarily hugely clear from the distance you're at as to what's going on, but this is the central concept of having a dashboard. So you can see at the top here there are various different major areas, and the key units are tasks, manuscripts, and people. So contact database under people, list the manuscripts for the journal under manuscripts, and your specific tasks under tasks. And the idea is that what you see here is very much dependent on your role with the journal. So if you're a section editor, all your tasks or your manuscripts associated with you, that's what you see. If, on the other hand, you're the editor-in-chief, you've got the ability to have full oversight of the journal, or to be able to filter down and see just those things relating to a particular section editor or just a particular section of the journal. But what this dashboard then does is pull together an overview of the most current things I think you need to really focus on, and also the status of where things are at. And so, I think, so you can see here just the basic sort of fact that you're logged in as an individual with certain rights, and you've got the ability to obviously find things. Then here, as I say, is sort of the general, the high-level navigation in terms of whether you're looking at your overview in the dashboard, tasks, manuscripts, or people, or reports as well. Very flexible things. We know it's very important to get data out, to be able to extract information from your journal. So we want to be able to provide flexible reports to give you that data. And here, this is just some numbers to give you a snapshot in terms of the manuscripts you're responsible for, or if you're the editor-in-chief, in terms of the overall picture of your journal, just where things are at. So there's just some highlights of numbers. And then this is a picture, if you click on that, it expands up into a more interactive graph, giving you a sense of, for each different stage of the process of publication, how many manuscripts are at that stage, and the colour reflects whether they are within their deadline or have passed the deadline set for the journal for that stage. So it gives you a good picture of the overall health of your journal pipeline according to what you've set as the time which certain stages should be able to take. It defines whether it's appearing in these traffic light colours. And what you can see actually is that down the side there, the traffic lights are also reflected in the individual manuscripts and the tasks. So if a task is overdue, or if a manuscript has spent longer in a certain stage than it should be, that's also reflected in the colours by the side of things. So those actually represent those columns as well. So what you can see down there is not just those traffic lights, but also a series of flags, and those flags are flexible. Each has their own column, and you can choose which ones you want to see. So it's rather like Outlook in the sense that there's many, many different things which, depending on your role, may be relevant for you to see about an article. Is this an article which is being held for PR purposes? Is this an article which is from somebody who's got an editorial role with the journal? Is it part of a supplement, for example? And depending on what's relevant to you, you can choose those viewing options. Then further down here, you can see just at the bottom of the page on the dashboard a watch list. So there are certain reasons you might just want to keep an eye on certain manuscripts. Of all the manuscripts you're responsible for, there may be something going on. And it's just a flexible way to say these watched manuscripts are going to stay at the top of your list, and you can always see what the current status is of those watched manuscripts. and the ability to add notes, of course, associated with why you're watching them.